Good morning. First, I have to apologize. Maybe I'm the only Swedish-looking person in the room who doesn't speak Swedish. So I will hold my presentation in English. I'm very glad to be here. First of all, to tell you who we are, EWZ, and actually why we are here. So I will give you a quick overview of the company, of our activities, of our strategy, and will also end with some project examples in the range of wind energy. EWZ is a vertically integrated power company existing since 123 years. We will soon have our next birthday. We always have been a producer, not just a supplier of electricity. And another characteristic is we always have been long in production. This means we always have produced more electricity than we are actually using to supply our clients, formerly the monopolist world, but now for the commercial client, we also have the open market in Switzerland. But we extended our range of services beyond electricity generation and distribution. On one direction was towards telecom. We are building a fiber net in the city of Zurich to be completed by 2018, 2019. Then we have also started about 15 years ago, or even 20 years, with the so-called energy services, which means extending the supply chain, the value chain of electricity, or not just supplying electricity, but other media like heating and cooling on the basis of renewable energies. Is it by heat pumps using the residual heat of lakes, residual heat of industrial production, biomass plant, solar thermal, and so on? We have well above 1,000 employees, mainly in the city of Zurich, but some 100 of them are located in the Swiss mountains, where some of our hydropower plants are located. And at this point, I always make the analogy, why are we in the Swiss mountains? EWZ expanded to the Swiss mountains already at the end of the 19th century because we realized that the river of Limmat was not carrying enough water to produce electricity within the boundaries of the city of Zurich. So we went there where there was ample water. And so a similar step we are doing now. We're going outside Switzerland to invest in wind projects where there is wind. And we are not just waiting until the wind is coming to Switzerland. So we have, of course, some challenges and some chances, as all the companies are having. We had a public vote in 2008 in the city of Zurich. It has the name On the Way to a 2000-watt society, with various consequences for our organization. On one hand, you will see still now we rely heavily on nuclear production as a part owner in some of the nuclear power plants. So it was decided by the people of Zurich and written in our constitution that we are no more allowed to invest in new nuclear power plants or to extend existing contracts, but we are allowed to run the existing plants as long as this is technically, commercially, and legally feasible. But in parallel, we are also allowed or encouraged to build up a new portfolio of new renewables to be ready with alternative production by the time the nuclear power plants will be out of service. I go a little bit deeper into this later. I would also stress the last point. We have challenging framework conditions, and one of the key conditions here is also what is the relation of Switzerland to Europe in terms of electricity, but also on the overall political level. And as we have seen in the presentation of Sweco, I got some, at least the pictures were quite clear. I didn't understand the Swedish, but I noticed that it was also mentioned for positive development of renewables, integration of the European market is very important. And so our strategy is based on this, knowing that it's very unsure when it will happen, but from my personal opinion, in 10 or 20 years, Switzerland in one way or the other will have arranged itself with the rest of Europe. And the point is we should put the power plants there now and not just go there in 20 years when there are no possibilities. So you might wonder what happened in the meantime if there will be no solution with Europe or some unexpected bigger problem. We can still sleep very well because all our foreign investments are commercially sound. So our fallback solution is to treat these investments as a simple financial investment. So we open actually up our strategic position for the next 20 to 30 years. A little bit clearer, you can see it on that slide. Here you have our production portfolio. On the bottom in blue, our hydro resources, then the nuclear, which will run out by 2030 plus. And in parallel, the green one and the yellow one, which is basically the wind and the solar, which we are building up in parallel to replace those resources. We have also a specific approach as far as technologies are concerned. In the middle, you see the technologies we are aiming at in Switzerland. This is our traditional hydropower, then a little bit of biomass, then some wind power in Switzerland where it is feasible, then photovoltaics, and in a longer view, the geothermal as a future technology. But all the rest we are trying to source outside of Switzerland. I'm always making the comparison. Switzerland has some good wine, some nice wine regions, but Switzerland is not really a wine producer. So we are also importing most of the good wine from our neighboring and even other southern countries. Coming back to the renewables, this is basically an explosion view of the green part in this slide. It shows basically we are aiming in three directions as far as wind is concerned. Wind onshore within Europe, then wind offshore, the green one, and the blue one, also some wind in Switzerland in those locations which are suitable. We have also concentrated a little bit on the countries. This is always a question of focusing and diversification. And we have chosen Germany, which was our first country where we have invested in wind. It's on one hand, it's a neighboring country. And secondly, they have a strong wind market. Then we went into France. Already 2010, we invested in a fantastic project in Norway. And then it was a logical step to go to Sweden, on one hand due to the very good wind resources, and on the other hand we also like very much this common wind market of Norway and Sweden, because contrary to the other system like the feed-in tariffs in Germany and France, it already has some market elements in there. And we are a market-oriented company, and market give also some challenge and improves the situation commercially. And I think for the time being, Sweden and Norway, we are really well aware the system is not perfect, but goes in the right long-term direction and might be even an example for the rest of Europe. Some key criteria to select our wind project. This is wind speed, annual production, minimum full load hours, and also a reasonable maximum size of projects. Then the other thing is also we are looking at the conditions like bankability, reputation of our shareholders, partners, suppliers, customer, then the sustainability criteria, and also we like to be actively involved in the development of projects because by tradition we are a power plant operator. So we also want to run, to plan, build and run our own wind plants. Of course, not alone, but at arm's length with all the relevant partners. And last but not least, the right to take over the electricity. This is a summary of the projects where we stand, where we are active in Europe. A little bit more specific, the organization chart. You know, we are still a department of the civil administration of the city of Zurich, and so it's not that easy to act on a European market as civil servants. So what we have done, we grouped all our foreign investment in the German holding company, the EWZ Deutschland GmbH, and have established daughter companies, usually single wind parks, but like in the EWZ Atlantic Sverige project, which has been mentioned before by our colleagues of Eolus. There we have all the 4 wind parks in one company. I've quickly calculated the EWZ proportion of the wind participation amounts now to 125 megawatt, roughly. We also have a small solar thermal power participation in Spain. Very quickly, what is also specific to the contract with Eolus and what is fairly new, we are trying to look at new partnerships, complementary partnerships between utility or power companies and financial investors. Both sides have their specific competences, and we are still thinking along the line 1 + 1 gives 2.5. And in that sense, we have negotiated, agreed, and signed all the contracts with the Atlantic portfolio. Now, just in brief to the Atlantic portfolio, why this was for us, or was a good contract to sign and is a good project to develop. It is fully in line with all our investment and strategic criteria. It's also a specific opportunity, a good opportunity to enter the Swedish market, and the only thing is learning by doing, or in other words, also sometimes try and error. And what is particular to the portfolio, we have this long-term PPA with Google, which gives us commercial stability for the first few years. And the third one is what I just mentioned, the proof of concept of this model of complementary financing. Last but not least, we have got to know Eolus as a trustworthy, competent partner. And once you have started a cooperation, if it works well, there is always room for future cooperation. I don't want to go in detail in the examples. I just show 3 examples, one wind in Switzerland, then wind Europe, and thirdly also one example in the offshore wind. This is also showing a little bit where the assets of Switzerland are. They are not really maybe in the wind, but rather in the tourism. But it's also a little bit the fake. It's actually not the Swiss mountains. These are the French mountains. What is interesting, this is the western part of Switzerland, the Jura Mountains. There are these rolling hills that for Swiss conditions, these are the best locations, but still the possibilities are moderate. We have wind speeds in the range of 5 to 6 meters per second, or maybe operating hours 16, 17, 1800 per year. So, but it's clear on a European context, you would call it, it's not competitive, but at least Switzerland also has to show its best efforts, not only building the wind plants all over abroad, but also have some hands-on experience in Switzerland. The next example is near the Channel, Pas-de-Calais in France. Excellent location, 2,900 operating hours. These are the Enercon machines. We put in operation this plant in August last year. We are very happy. Then the last one I'm showing, this is the Butendiek offshore wind park, where we are participating with just 5%. This is not much considering the whole project, but here the main idea is to gain hands-on experience with new technologies. We hope or are sure offshore might contribute to in a reasonable way on the long-term perspective, but it's not proven yet whether offshore is really on the long term will be competitive to onshore and other technologies. But to prove it, you just have to do it. And that's why we stepped in. What is also interesting in this concept is, again, one of these partnerships between purely commercial investors and the utilities. We are, with our 5%, we are the only utility company in there. So it took me, I think, a little bit too long, but I still hope it was some interesting information for you. And you know now a little bit better what this funny three letters EWZ might mean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruno, for this presentation and for taking time to come to Hässleholm today. We leave it there. Just one question here. For a company, as EW said, how big of a challenge is it to replace such a big portion of your energy production that came from nuclear and to go nuclear free?
Well, the biggest challenge is because it's so long term. You know, when I started working in the mid-70s with an engineering company at that time called BBC. Later it became ABB. Then we had all these projects. I work in China. You start, and maybe in 5 years you will build a project. And then these new guys came in. What is now your quarterly result? And what is your target for next year? And they said, yeah, we are not talking about next year. We are talking about 3 years. And that's the problem. In the modern business world, this long-term perspective mostly got lost, I have to say, as an engineer. And so it's always a challenge to keep track, to keep on your target, and always measure the small steps in relation with the long-term target. Because to be very frank, if me and all our colleagues wouldn't do anything, nothing much would happen the next few years, because as you have seen, it's still 2030 plus. So that's really the big challenge. You really have to, I always compare it a little bit with the marathon run. Every single step counts to be there at the 42-kilometer finishing line, but it's not spectacular, this one step. And so this is really the continuous challenge that you set. You break it down to individual small targets and never forget the long-term objective.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Bruno. And also you, of course, will get a power bank so you can charge your cell phone going home. And looking forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
Welcome.